Alrighty guys, today I'm going to play a little video. It's called All About Algae from PBS. There are some questions that you can go along with the video that you'll have to answer in Canvas. You may need to adjust the sound to make it a little bit louder for yourself.
A growing passion is made possible by Euro-American propagators, providing young and finished plant selections all year long. Better plants from better light. The Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Rancho La Puerta Fitness Resort and Spa. Laura Gallinson. And with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. When we think about the ocean, we think of calm and tranquility and peacefulness. We know there's sharks out there, and whales, and dolphins, and lots of fish. But did you also know there are little tiny single-celled algae that float around in the water? And just beyond the surface is the kelp forest, where tall seaweeds wave back and forth in the surge. Algae are found in every ocean, from the tiny single cells we call phytoplankton to the 200-foot-long kelp. Like plants, algae photosynthesize. They use sunlight and carbon dioxide to make chemical energy. In the process, they generate most of the oxygen in the atmosphere. That's the oxygen we breathe. Algae contain fats, fiber, carbohydrates, vitamins, and proteins, many of which have found their way into our daily lives. Their existence is nearly invisible, yet they play a crucial role in feeding, fixing, and fueling the world, both historically and into the future. With all the new technologies, we're finding lots of new ways to grow and use algae and seaweed. California and San Diego in particular are leading the way in this new green revolution. We'll see how today on A Growing Passion. San Diego's vast expanse of shoreline has long been a breeding ground for algae research. And at UC San Diego, biologist Stephen Mayfield is a leader in algae biotechnology.
Long before dinosaurs, the oceans were filled with algae. And what happened is they captured CO2 and they put it into oils and they sank to the bottom of the oceans. They were covered by silt and sand, and then over hundreds of millions of years under high temperature and high pressure, the protein and carbohydrates were degraded. They were eaten by bacteria, and what was left over were the fatty acids and the hydrocarbons, and that became petroleum.
For years, Mayfield has worked on the development of algae biofuels. But as the price of fossil fuels cycle up and down, so does funding for algae research. So Mayfield and his colleagues broadened their focus to include other uses for the products that derive from algae.
Once you understand that petroleum is simply fossil algae, then you can recognize right away, well, I can take modern algae oil, I can take oil produced in algae today, and I can convert that into any product that I make from petroleum. So we talked to the students and we thought about it. And we said, what's the most important product we could possibly make? And clearly what we came up with is a surfboard. So important for surfers to make sure that we protect the environment, and yet the surfboards, our connection between us and the ocean, is a piece of plastic made from fossil fuel, and everybody knew that was wrong.
A surfboard blank is the buoyant core that allows a surfboard to float. Traditionally, blanks are made with petroleum-based polyurethane. In the lab, however, Mayfield and his students make algae oils into polyols, that are cross-linked to make an algae-based polyurethane.
So they're sustainable, and that's really important. That means the CO2 that's in them we didn't pull out of the ground. But more important than that, because we made it from modern algae oil, they're biodegradable. So when you're done with that surfboard, you strip the fiberglass off it and throw it into a compost pile, and it will be eaten by bacteria and fungus.
Surfers and the surfboard industry are very excited about the potential for a biodegradable surfboard.
Board ride's really good, actually. It's like really fast and it gets a lot of momentum off your speed. It rides just like any other board, but it's good for the environment. All surfers, are connected with the ocean, and it's probably good that we, ride something and use equipment that's good for the ocean.
Why did we make a surfboard, and why is it so important for us to make these things? Is because we want to leave that sequestered CO2 underground. We do not want to pull that out in any form and release it into the environment. That's what causes climate change. This is well known. So when we make surfboards from algae oil, that is CO2 that is pulled out of the air. So now we're taking CO2 out of the air and we're putting it into a surfboard. So a wonderful thing for the environment.
Scientists have been studying algae for decades, but turning algae into polyols requires more than biology. It also involves chemistry and technology and imagination. San Diego is a nexus for the scientists and the entrepreneurs who together are shaping the modern algae biotech industry.
The really important thing that you have in these is its surface area, so you get sunlight to shine on it. And then what the mixing does is that allows the algae to tumble, so you're getting the oxygen out and you're getting CO2 in, and those are the two critical things.
Here at UC San Diego's Biology Field Station, Mayfield and his students simulate real-world algae production.
So this one happens to be a marine algae called Nanochloropsis. Nanochloropsis is a green algae that naturally makes and accumulates high levels of omega-3 fatty acids. So you and I always hear, you should eat more salmon, you should eat more cold water fish. Well, in fact, fish do not make omega-3 fatty acids, algae do. And then the algae are eaten by krill, and then the krill get eaten by the salmon, and so they accumulate in the salmon. So here what we're doing is we're getting rid of the middle fish. But what we're looking at here is how long can we keep an algae pond going? So algae is agriculture, and just like any agriculture, you always worry, is a pest going to show up and eat this? Am I going to get a fungal infection or a bacterial infection? So this is really just to see how long we can keep it going and how much omega-3s are made in it, depending upon the time of the year.
Growing algae is pretty basic. They need water, salty or fresh depending on the species, plenty of carbon dioxide, lots of sunlight, nutrients, and just the right temperature. These wide, shallow ponds are models for larger scale production. They grow different species of algae with different compounds each one makes. The ponds are fine-tuned to just the right conditions for each kind of algae to produce its specific compound, while keeping photosynthesis and cell division rates at their optimum.
We call this photosynthetic biomanufacturing. So that's what these guys are. They're little single-celled engines where the energy input is from sunlight, the carbon comes from CO2 pulled out of the atmosphere, and then I get to make proteins, I can make carbohydrates, I can make lipids, I can make nucleic acids, I can make all those things.
Well, you're not making them, they're making them.
They're making them, that's exactly right.
Algae biomanufacture proteins used in animal feed and human foods, lipids for cosmetics, nucleic acids for pharmaceuticals, and much more.
It's one of those things where, now that we've been doing it for several years, it's like, why didn't we think of this before? It's such a naturally obvious way to go. But it just takes a little while for technology to sort of catch up with reality.
Scientists are looking at using algae to treat wastewater, too. It's a trash-to-treasure opportunity.
So algae are the most efficient organisms on the planet at pulling nitrogen and phosphate out of wastewater. So for us, for any group, you have what's called primary treatment. So you grow it aerobically, and the bacteria chew up all the sugars in it. And then sometimes you'll put that through an anaerobic digester, right? But what's always left over is nitrogen and phosphate. Here, we dump it out into the ocean or you pump it underground. But if you ran it through an algae pond, that water would be so clean you could drink it after that. And sooner or later, we're definitely going to do this in San Diego, and I think it'll be done everywhere.
UCSD's California Center for Algae Biotechnology serves as a research partner for the biotech industry, which then develops algae applications. For their research, scientists and students grow algae in these on-campus ponds. And like all good farmers, they work with their crops every day.
So that's a little sample of the pond that we just put in there.
And what are those?
So those are little single-celled algae. That one happens to be called Cenodesmus. They're little banana-shaped guys.
They really are small because that's only 10 microns, right?
That's only 10 microns. So these things are, several thousand-fold.
So we're seeing them, and we're just seeing sort of a little sack of green. If we were to look inside, what would be in there?
So what you'd see is the same thing that you see inside of a plant cell, actually. You'd see a chloroplast, and you'd see mitochondria, and you'd see a nucleus, and they're carrying on photosynthesis. That's why they're kind of green-colored.
So they all look the same. Is that typical?
Well, when you have a good pond, they all look the same. But this is the real world. And so what quite often you'll find is that 99% of yours are Cenodesmus and 1% are something else. A weed, as they're called, a weedy species in there. So we get weeds in our algae ponds, just like you do in your garden.
As scientists refine the methods for growing algae, they develop models for large-scale production. That opens the door for algae extracts to be used in a wide range of products. Other algae are bioengineered in the lab to produce compounds for use in medications and pharmaceuticals.
What's growing in these guys right here is called GCSF, granulocyte colony stimulating factor. So that is actually the protein drug that you take that stimulates white blood cells when you're taking chemotherapy for cancer.
A tiny single-cell green algae called Chlamydomonas is making a compound that until now has only been manufactured in commercial laboratories.
That little brown is all we get out of about 2 or 3 liters, but it's very concentrated, very purified, and higher value.
While microalgae's potential is vast, it's not easy to scale up for industrial production. As they resolve those issues, UCSD researchers foresee algae-based products that touch many aspects of our lives. And as production becomes more cost-effective, a flood of these little one-celled organisms just might revolutionize the world. Algae has had a spot on dinner plates on every continent going back to time immemorial. If you've ever eaten sushi, or cottage cheese, or drank a glass of chocolate milk, you've eaten algae. Algae is an ancient food. When the Spaniards arrived in Mexico in the 1500s, they saw the Aztecs making small loaves of spirulina, a blue-green algae gathered from a nearby lake. Spirulina also grows naturally in alkaline ponds in Ethiopia, in Kenya, Tanzania, and Chad, where it's harvested and turned into edible cakes. Spirulina are tiny, but together they pack a nutritional punch. They contain more beta-carotene than carrots, more iron than raw spinach, and gram for gram, more calcium than milk. At Earthrise Nutritionals in the California desert, spirulina is grown and processed as a food supplement. There are 40 spirulina ponds here, each as big as a football field. This is the oldest and the largest spirulina farm in the world. Dr. Amha Pillay is one of the world's spirulina experts. Over the years, his research has improved spirulina yields. It's reduced the cost of production and isolated algae extracts that hold great promise. His long-term goal is to produce spirulina to feed a hungry world.
This is an ordinary farm. It may not look like a farm. It is may sound a little high-tech, but it's basically like the farm next door.
But you're in the desert. Why do this in the desert?
This particular species, Acrospira platensis, requires high temperature and plenty of sunshine. And this is the perfect environment to grow in.
Mineral-rich Colorado River water is pumped into the holding ponds, where the sediments settle out. After the water is filtered, it's piped into the growing ponds. Dr. Pillay, how deep are these ponds?
These ponds are about 20 to 30 centimeters.
So that's
about 1 to 1.5 feet.
a foot and a half deep. And why are they shallow? Why do you keep them so shallow?
They are shallow because we want the algae to get light. The light comes from the surface, and if it's too deep, the light cannot penetrate deep. So that's why they have to be shallow.
So what temperature do the spirulina grow fastest at?
They grow at around 35 to 37 degrees Celsius, which is over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, between 100 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit.
And what do the paddles do?
Purpose of the paddle wheels is two. One is when we add nutrients, the nutrients will be mixed across the length of the channel. And the second is to distribute the algae through the light gradient.
So they're big mixers.
They are big mixers, yeah.
Carbon dioxide is added to the water for the algae to use in photosynthesis and to balance the water alkalinity to near pH 10. There aren't many organisms that survive in water that alkaline, so the high pH helps protect the ponds from contamination by other algae or bacteria. I assume the spirulina isn't growing in just plain water. What do you have to add to the ponds?
What we add to the water is basically what is added in other agricultural practice: nitrogen source, phosphorus source, potassium source, iron, trace metals, and we also add sodium bicarbonate in order to increase the alkalinity and the pH, because this organism is adapted to very high pH.
At summer's peak, in the intense desert heat and sun, these ponds are harvested around the clock, yielding up to 3 tons of dried spirulina in a single day. Still, the focus is on quality, not on quantity. Spirulina contains omega-6 fatty acids. It's also high in beta-carotene, in iron, and several antioxidants. While it's low in calories, spirulina is 65% protein by dry weight. That's the highest protein-to-weight ratio of any plant or animal product, which is why NASA sends spirulina food products on space missions. It's a quick trip from culture pond to powder. Pipes pump the pond water through a series of filters that concentrate millions, if not billions, of tiny green spirulina cells into a pasty slurry. At this stage, the spirulina is 80% water. In the drying tower, intense heat flash dries the cells. The result is a deep green powder. The drying process preserves nutrients, pigments, and enzymes without the need for preservatives or stabilizers. Every batch of dried spirulina powder is carefully tested to ensure its nutritional content meets or beats quality standards. The pigments that keep spirulina so beautifully green can be extracted to make natural food coloring. So I'm looking at this blue. That's beautiful.
This is blue. In fact, about 2 years ago, FDA approved it as a food colorant, as a food additive in the USA. And this year we started a huge plant, a big plant, to extract the pigment and sell it as a food coloring.
Earthrise farming methods are more sustainable than traditional farming. In this closed-loop system, water is recycled and nothing is discharged into the environment. There are no byproducts and no waste. All the algae require are water and a few nutrients. And this kind of farming produces 18 times more protein per acre than corn and 14 times more protein than soy. Earthrise Nutritionals is a pioneer in the mass outdoor cultivation of spirulina for food. Their elegant systems hold great promise for feeding a hungry world in the U.S. and across the globe. And with developments in algae extracts expanding their market, Earthrise's future looks greener than ever. While microalgae farms may be the future, macroalgae, those are the big seaweeds, are traditional crops that have been harvested from the ocean for thousands of years. Seaweed extracts like agar and carrageenan are used as thickeners, emulsifiers, and texturizers in products ranging from salad dressings to pudding, lotions to toothpaste. CA Botana International in San Diego uses extracts from kelp and other large seaweeds in their high-end skincare lines. They do their own research and development of plant-based products that moisturize, soothe, and help protect skin from sun damage. Dieter Kuster talked with me about the value algae adds to their products.
Algae is purely natural. It comes by nature, created in the oceans. Algae is actually a product which has been used for thousands of years. And especially in the last few hundred years, it has become very much used for human consumption, but from pharmaceutical products, cosmetics, and food products.
CA Botana uses only the highest quality natural ingredients. They're very careful about the kinds of algae they use and where that algae is harvested.
We're looking for algae which has no way of pollution, because algae feeds on the ocean, and therefore it has to be clean. Therefore, the harvesting of algae has been moved more so into cleaner waters, away from the San Diego area onto the Oregon coast, when we talk about Pacific algae, and up to the coast of Scotland, very far north, and some of the Bay of Biscay of France, where the water is very clean. So this algae is still not polluted. That's actually also refined algae. The seaweed itself doesn't build a consistency. So this is a very highly concentrated form, and then it is goes to a very high cleaning process. You see.
Oh, it smells like ocean. I mean, really smells like ocean. Cosmetics target the outer layers of skin cells. The seaweed gel mask deprives the skin of oxygen. Blood rushes to the skin surface to supply more oxygen, and this process starts the regeneration of skin cells. The gel mask contains an extract of an algae commonly called bladderwrack. The extract is thought to be an anti-inflammatory disinfectant that helps stimulate, revitalize, and nourish skin. Ooh, that feels nice.
Yeah.
That feels really nice. CA Botana makes and packages all of their products on site. Where are we, Ursula?
We're going into the manufacturing area. It's called our big kitchen.
Your big kitchen, I can see that. Here, products developed in the lab are scaled up for mass production.
We are creating here a mask, has seaweed as well as green tea for pigmentation and for hydration.
Aloe vera, ginseng, and coffee extracts are just a few of the plant-based ingredients that are added to algae-derived botanicals, like sodium alginate and kelp extracts and oils. The ocean's influence is never far away. You're kind of simulating seawater.
Correct.
By the ingredients you put in.
Correct. And that's why we put a neutralizer into the water to take that harshness out of purified water, to make it very soft and be more acceptable for the ingredients which go in it.
Very complicated.
Yeah. It's very scientific in one way and complicated, but in the end, it's a product which people love and we guarantee results. That's what it is. People want to look beautiful. That's our job. Keep America beautiful. Keep the world beautiful.
CA Botana uses seaweed extracts in products from shampoo to lotions, face masks to sunscreen, all of which they sell and ship around the world. CA Botana chooses algae for their products because it naturally soothes and hydrates skin. It stimulates cellular metabolism, and it has antioxidant properties too. With a resume like that, I had to give it a try.
The first thing we'll be doing today is cleansing the day off. We'll be taking off dirt, debris, makeup, sunscreen, anything that might be on your skin. And we use the facial cleanser right here by Sea Enzyme, which is rich with botanicals from the sea, seaweed, and wonderful hydrators as well. It detoxifies, it hydrates, and really you're feeding all those antioxidants, those unusually rich vitamins and minerals from the sea into the skin by using the seaweed and the seaweed elements that are in this.
This is the green mask that I made earlier with Dieter and Ursula.
It absolutely is. So for someone that's looking for hydration, it's a very hydrating mask. And that doesn't take away from the fact that the mask can also be very detoxifying for someone who may have acne or congestion in skin. And it can be used equally for someone that may have rougher skin, that needs a little bit more hydration, that might need the skin to be softened or soothed. If someone has some irritation and needs the skin to be calm, this mask is equally effective.
Algae is increasingly popular as a cosmetic ingredient. And no wonder. I could feel the difference. My skin feels amazing. It just feels really smooth and really hydrated, and I'm honestly a little surprised. It's really soft and it's really moist, and I can see my skin's glowing.
I notice a difference in the texture.
Yeah, you can.
And the tone of the skin.
Mm-hmm.
And just the overall pigment is just a lot more even. It was able to drop the inflammation and really hydrate your skin. Bring out a brightness, a revitalized look to your skin.
I just have to remember what you did so I can do it again at home. CA Botana uses renewable and regrowable botanicals in their products. With their decades of experience harnessing the power of plants from land and sea, they formulate cosmetics that are green in every sense of the word. Connect with a growing passion for gardening tips, behind-the-scenes updates, and interact with other fans. Upload your own photos and tell us how you are helping California grow. Algae are photosynthetic powerhouses. They promise alternative sources of petroleum, of protein, and other raw ingredients for a menu of products. These organisms offer more sustainable options to some of our greatest challenges: for food, for fuel, and for products still unknown. So the next time you're at the beach, breathe deeply and then think about what's floating just below the surface. I'm Nan Sturman. Thanks for watching.
All right, guys, that was a pretty interesting video, I think. Just talking a little bit about all the different things that we can do with algae, from fuels all the way up to different cosmetics and how it can help your skin. Make sure you guys have answered those questions that are in the Canvas page, and I will talk to you all later.